My name is Rasmus Sørensen, and I'm the General Secretary of DEO, organizing this event with the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation in Brussels. And we can see from the bookings for this meeting that we have participants from Denmark, Austria, Belgium, Switzerland, Germany, Spain, Finland, France, England, Norway, the Netherlands, Romania, Russia, and Sweden. So it's almost like the Eurovision Song Contest here, but this is politics. And today we do a book launch. We've been working together with the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation on a project for 2 years with participants from mainly Sweden, Germany, and Denmark, discussing far-right populism or right-wing populism and the challenges and threats they pose to especially left-wing politics, but also to democracy at large. We have done 2 major workshops or conferences in this project. It's one in Malmö in Sweden in 2019, and one online, of course, due to Corona restrictions last year in November, with the participants discussing what is right-wing populism in these 3 countries, how do left-wing parties and movements handle or tackle it, and what kind of left-wing are we dreaming about, do we want for the future. The book that we are launching is a 9-chapter anthology. The first section with 3 authors is analysis on right-wing populism in Denmark, in Sweden, and in Germany. The second section, we have 3 authors discussing strategies, left-wing party strategies towards far-right populism, also in the 3 countries. And in the final section 3, we have asked 3 intellectuals, 3 thinkers on the left to sort of give us a vision on the perfect left. What would a perfect left look like if it were to be able to tackle right-wing populism and society's problem at large? And it is these 3 authors we've invited to the book launch, and those are Aron Etzler. He's with us on video from Sweden today. He's a party secretary of Vänsterpartiet in Sweden. We also call him a chief strategist. I don't know if that's true, Aron, you must correct me then. And he's a journalist and author of several books on the political situation in Sweden and elsewhere in Europe. The other speaker is Kerstin Wolter. She's a policy advisor of the Die Linke, of the left party in Germany, and she has contributed to several publications, books on right-wing populism, and she has an academic background in cultural and social geography from Humboldt University, from Berlin. And lastly, we have from Denmark, Esben Bøgh Sørensen. He's a regional party secretary for the Red-Green Party in Denmark, the Enhedslisten. And he also a PhD in history and has done a dissertation on, and you have to correct me, Esben, if I'm not right, about the history of capitalism, isn't it? And he regularly contributes to the debate in Denmark. So we've asked these 3 authors in the book to do a very brief presentation of the main points, their suggestions, strategic or otherwise, for a good left-wing party in the future. And after their brief presentations, we'll open up for a discussion with you. So you are free to comment and ask questions in something like half an hour. And then I leave the floor to the first of the speakers, and that's you, Aron Etzler from Sweden. Welcome to you. The microphone is yours.
Thanks a lot. I will try to not overrun my 7 minutes here in respect to you. Well, this week has been really extraordinary in Sweden. As some of you have seen, we have, as a party, the left party, crushed a major reform package in liberalizing the housing market in Sweden, also causing a government crisis, which actually means that we may have an extra election or a shift in government. So it's been a really high-stake conflict, and we have been the instigator of this. And I think that there are some really important results in respect to what we are to talk about today. First of all, it's been the first time in 30 years in which housing policies have been at the center of the debate. Second, we've seen a huge support for our resistance to these market reforms. Um, Respect from most Swedes, more trust and confidence in our party leader. We surged in the polls, and we also had 2,100 new members in 1 week, which is, I think, an all-time high for our party in the little country of Sweden. And the last thing, I think, is one of the most striking things, that during this week, we've had no talk about the subjects of the extreme right, about immigrants, about criminality, about anything of that. Everything has been on this focus on this social struggle. So maybe, and we've seen this in history, I mean, in many times, that the social struggle is really has an ability to sort of cancel out the propaganda of the extreme right. They don't have much things to say about this. So when we manage to bring the fight up to a level like this, that is actually what happens. Now, I was invited to write on the perfect left, as Rasmus said, which is a subject that I've actually been working quite a lot on, having written for 20 years about different social movements, such as the MST of Brazil, the Dutch Socialist Party, the Norwegian Trondheim model, the failure of the French PCF, Italian Rifondazione Comunista, about Chavez, Kerala, about the golden age of the British left, etc. So this and I've also been, as Rasmus mentioned, I am the party secretary. So these are also daily matters for me, how to make our party better and how to avoid the pitfalls. And when I started to write this text, it was really funny to write because I could be a lot more sarcastic than I usually am in my profession, because I think the left have many deficiencies. And pretty soon I decided to stay clear of policies, talking only about organization. That is because I think that the left of today is kind of rather good in policies, in most cases at least, while we are pretty terrible at organization. And in this small chapter, I compare us to someone who is only working a set of muscles at the gym. Uh, and that is the same muscles that they were, strong in from the beginning. This happens a lot when you see these young guys mostly, who have the ideas that they should have strong biceps, and they go to the gym and they only train the biceps, and you can see that they have small, sticks as legs. It's called disco training. And that is my image of the left today, that we are really good in arranging seminars, thinking, having theories about society, but we suck at organizing. And that has consequences. I think that our messages are not known to most people. Most people know more about Donald Trump's message than the left party or other parties of the left. We have far too inefficient outreach. We don't reach people in the numbers we need to. We reach too much of our own circles and not the public. We have too little money and too little traction and influence in the media, which is a major problem for any political force. And I would also say that we have bad working conditions within the left, which has, a really serious result that people are not attracted, talents are not attracted in enough numbers. And you can see all this because if you change the leadership in a party, they could have had an amount of success. You can see that it's not unusual that things are crumbling within months or at least years, and that is a serious problem. So I have 5 proposals in this chapter. The first one is that we need to believe in our message, which is socialism. It's a very popular message, and as the neoliberal world is crumbling, we now see that the extreme right is filling the void with their narrative. I think it naturally should be our narrative instead, and I think it's it really points to the weakness of the left, that we haven't been managed to filling this. The second thing is that we need to get a grip on polling, because we need to refine the message to get our message of socialism out. I can see that many parties of the left are not using this tool, which is, I think, a terrible mistake, because we can avoid the traps, we can highlight our, best sides and win elections. The third thing, we need to invest heavily in long-term organization. The fourth thing is to create a welcoming and efficient culture, which I see that many parties are staying clear of having, things like leadership courses or, any kind of development at the highest level. We recently made our first course like this in 30 years. So I know it's very unusual. And of course, the fifth thing, to get our message through. And so what I proposed kind of concretely the last time was that we would create some kind of platform, a benchmarking forum, or what you want, where we could actually discuss these questions to kind of lift the left, to make us more electable, to make us stronger, and to make our traction among people much better, because we need it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for that, Aron Etzler. So it's for you, the main proposal here for strategies is to organize better and spend more time on that. And then we shift to Kerstin Wolter from Germany, from Die Linke. And your overall message is to connect better with the social movements, the new social movements. So the floor is yours, Kerstin.
Yes, thank you very much, Rasmus, and thank you very much to you all. I'm very happy to be here tonight, and I'm also very happy to be part of this book project, which I think is very great and very important right now, so that we all can discuss how we can face the right-wing populism. And it's a bit crazy that I now in June I talk about my article, which I already wrote in January. So on the one side, I think very much happened since then in politics and society, and on the other hand, I think there are some questions are still the same. And I was focusing in my article about the relationship between left parties and especially the left party in Germany and social movements like the new social movements or the social movements of the time. And in Germany, we have the situation that we have a very strong discussion in the left party in how and if the left party should be part of government, and how we can implement left politics in government, and if we can implement left politics, because we had the very disappointing red-green government in around the 2000 years of the Social Democrats and the Green Party. For example, they were facing military operations, and they implemented in a lot of neoliberal politics, also in the facing the social state and so on. And we also had in the beginning of this 2 years of 2000, we had a few also not very successful governments with the participation of the left party, Die Linke, which also led to a lot of skepticism if we can implement left politics in government. And one solution is a discussion: if we have a strong relationship with social movements, maybe they can help the left party do left politics in government. And I think the question of being part of governments or like just being opposition is kind of left out in the articles of Aron and Esben. So yeah, and I think that is that we had this this disappointing experiences is it's for example because of the forces of the bourgeois parliamentism is very strong, and I think it's hard to find an own way of politics in it. So as I said, the solution was, one solution is the better cooperation between left social movements or new social movements and the left party. And some in our party say we should be, or the left party should be, a party on the move. I don't know if the translation fits into English, but eine Partei in Bewegung. And I think the relationship between social movements and the left party in Germany is often kind of frictioned on the one hand, but but on the other hand, it can't be separated, because the left party and the social movements, they are both organizing protest against social injustice, climate crisis, sexism, and racism. And I think the existence of social movements and the left party can barely be separated from each other, as we can see already when we look back on the huge working class movements at the beginning of the 20th century in Europe, when social movements and its institutional organizations as the social movement of the working class and its institutional organizations as trade unions and socialist and communist parties really depended on each other. I think Esben wrote a lot of it in his article. And when and how the social democratic parties and the left parties lost power in organizing the working class over the 20th century, I think Esben already also described very good in his article. And the rise of the new social movements, not the traditional social movements, is kind of a consequence of this development. When people lost faith in the traditional institutions like trade unions and parties. And but I think still there is an opportunity in this development. And in the last years, we had a very successful development in Berlin, when we, or the left party or the left government, in Berlin we have a coalition of the left party, the Social Democrats, and the Green Party. They implemented the so-called Mietendeckel. It's like a rent cap, where which means that the rents couldn't rise for 5 years, and even rents which are too high could even be lowered. And I think this project, or this politics, was only possible because of 3 things. Because we had a very, very strong housing movement for decades in Berlin, which exerted its pressure on the government. We had, on the second, we had a left party in the government, which had the courage to deal with the huge real estate groups in Berlin and Europe, and international real estate groups. And we had a rent situation, or we still have in Berlin, which affected also the middle classes and not only the very poor people. And I think these 3 developments led to the possibility to implement the rent cap, and to also face with this project the capitalistic mode of production. And I think a successful left, and when I say left, I mean the party and the movement and the trade unions should learn from these successful examples. And we have this also, or another example could be also in Berlin. We have a great or a very huge hospital movement, and the left party and the social movements were a very big part of it. So, for example, the left party gained a lot of new members from the nursing professionals in the last years. So there is a relationship in being part in protests and gaining members. And I think, and there I totally agree with Aron, is it's very important to gain members, because this is the possibility for nachhaltig, what is the word? Sustainable development of working class power. And I think this is also a thing that or a method that left parties can have instead of the movements, because movements are very are not able to hold participants for a long time. And I think then if we learn from these examples, and if we can build a new class movement all together with the trade unions, the left parties and the social movements, this would be the best strategy against right-wing populism. And I think, we have, when we want to learn from the examples, we also need spaces for discussing those strategies. And I really think, and I can speak for the German left, but maybe it's also in other countries, we don't have the spaces and we do not have the strategies for now. And this is, and I think the left party is really in a situation where discussing the question how we can rebuild the trust of the working class for the left party. So I think this is a huge question, and I think we have a lot of difficulties in finding answers, and finding answers in not where not the different parts of the working class are put in a concurrent situation. I don't know the English word right now. But maybe you understand. So I think this is what we have to do, and I know it's always important to be on the streets, to be in protests, but I think we also need this spaces of finding the right strategy.
Thank you, Kerstin, Wolter. I'll leave the microphone to you, Esben Bøgh Sørensen from Denmark. Please take the floor and let us know a bit about your strategies, suggestions at least.
Great, thanks, Rasmus. Well, the task was to describe a perfect left, and of course, as a historian, approach this task in a historical way. I tried to take a longer historical look at the Danish case of the rise of the right-wing populism, but also take a historical look at what kind of situation the Danish left is in today, and then I propose some steps out of this situation, or impasse, as I call it. I argue that the rise of right-wing populism in Denmark should be seen in the context of the decline of party democracy since the 1970s, involving a greater distance between citizens and the political elite. but also a general retreat from questions concerning class, both in politics, in media, and in academia. And all these tendencies, the decline of party democracy and the retreat of class, kind of constitute this background for the rise of right-wing populism in the late 90s, early zeros. Of course, an important part of this process was the dissolution of the classical social democratic labor movement with all its economic, social, cultural, etc. organizations and institutions, but also the social democratic party's conscious distancing itself from its former working class base from the 90s onwards, in favor of chasing this expanding group of middle class urban swing voters. And of course, also finally, the Social Democratic Party's embrace of policies of liberalization and austerity from the 90s, and privatization. And of course, I argue this situation in the late 90s left a space open to right-wing populism. At the same time, I argue that the parties to the left of social democracy have not been able to exploit this gap left by the Social Democratic Party, this gap in working class mobilization. The left parties, like my own, the Red Green Alliance, which was founded in '89, was and is and have been very good at incorporating and articulating the demands and of the new social movements and later protest movements also. But they or we have been very unsuccessful in mobilizing working class, the working class groups throughout the country. And instead, we have mostly been mobilizing metropolitan, young, well-educated voters. And despite our recent search in polls, this is still very much the case. What we have seen instead in recent years is that the Danish Social Democrats have focused their efforts again on winning back the working class voters they lost previously to the right wing, in particular working class voters outside of the biggest cities in Denmark. And of course, in the last 2 decades, the working class in Denmark have been pushed out of the biggest cities. So there's an overlap in these two, the geographical and the social question here. And at the same time, we're also in a situation where the Social Democrats winning back working class voters have not actually curbed right-wing populism. Of course, there's a whole question of the Social Democrats' embrace of right-wing policies on immigration, on the immigration issue especially, but also the right-wing populists have not is as strong as ever, even though the Danish People's Party actually lost half of its voters in 2019. With the arrival of this new, even more extremist party, the New Right Party, right-wing populism is still living and breathing in Denmark. Of course, this situation constitutes a major challenge to the left parties and to the Red-Green Alliance in Denmark, who has reached a kind of impasse, unable to reach beyond its current base of metropolitan, young, well-educated, and so on voters. And in the chapter, I propose some steps forwards to break this impasse, and these steps is kind of a strategy, maybe. And they're centered on developing a political project focused on class politics. So that's my main argument. I think that a perfect left needs to be able to reorient towards class politics and again be able to mobilize the working class. And of course, this question today, this question of what happens outside of the biggest cities is very important, as I mentioned before. But also the things both Aron and Kerstin have talked about in regard to be better at mobilizing, be better at organizing. The left has been very good at participating in protests and so on, but we also need organizing and new types of organizations and institutions, I argue. So I think that's my main points, and I would of course recommend reading the book also.
We'll offer you a web version of the book after this meeting, so you can read it for yourself, and the printed copy will be out soon. But while you think on your questions to these three thinkers of the left, I'll start with a question that the three left-wing parties have in common right now, and Kerstin raised it: the relation to the power parties on the center-left, mainly the Social Democrat Party. And I think, Aron, with the situation in Sweden, maybe you could give us a little bit of input on how do you see your cooperation or relation to the Social Democrats and the other parties that could be part of the left-wing dominated government.
Well, thank you. We have a very strange situation right now, since the Social Democrats in Sweden have gathered around them liberal parties that actually had as a precondition to their cooperation that the left party would have no influence. So what we have done is that we have, together with the right-wing parties, time and again rolled over this government. I mean, we have basically crushed 10 of their proposals, and now we've removed the prime minister. So we've been putting up a real fight in this, and I think it's necessary because the left party needs to have influence, and we should not back down from that. We also know that we've been successful in previous years in negotiating a lot of actually good reforms with the Social Democrats. So we know both that when we have influence, the policies get better. We don't have as dark, experience as when I listened to Kerstin. It sounded really like a pessimistic view, which may be true, because I mean, things are different in different countries. I have a kind of a positive view on that, but the thing is that they have now been really successful in shutting us out. So that's what we're trying to break now, and I hope we succeed, really. And we've been doing this locally too. For instance, today in Uppsala, the fourth biggest city in Sweden, we do the same thing. We break away with the Social Democrats, running the city with the right wing. And we have no quarrels about doing that, because even when we do policies with the right-wing parties, policies get better than when the Social Democrats do it with the liberals. So I think we've found kind of our strategy in doing this.
And Kerstin, could you elaborate a bit on the relation between Die Linke and the SPD in Germany? Or maybe include the Greens if they're a closer ally.
Yeah, maybe as I see, for example, Anja Meyer from Germany as well in Left Party. I think she has a closer look, but in Germany we have the situation that part of Die Linke left the Social Democrats in the beginning of the 2000s and built the the Left Party there. And was part of building the Left Party, because the Left Party was founded in 2007 after the huge neoliberal politics of the red-green or social democratic and green party politics in Germany. And so they are kind of like, tense relationships between it. And on the other side, we have the Green Party, which is really successful right now in Germany, which is leaving the part of also being a left party, which has a focus on climate change, of social politics, and also of peaceful politics. So and they are more on a way of negotiate with huge companies and so on. So I think the Left Party is standing left from both parties, but for example in Berlin, or it was like in some federal countries, we have coalitions between those three parties. And even though we have differences, I think all three parties are part of the middle left or middle left project in Germany. So I think the Left Party has the task to put pressure for left politics also on the Green Party and the Social Democrats.
Let's hear from you, Esben, because like in Sweden, we have in Denmark a Social Democrat-led government with support from, among others, the left-wing party, the Red-Green Alliance, Enhedslisten in Denmark.
Yes, exactly. But the difference between the situations in Sweden and in Denmark is that in Denmark we made this agreement with the Social Democratic minority government. And this agreement, a written agreement about the general direction of the policies of the government, it was actually on the initiative of the Red-Green Alliance, and it was a result of our experiences with the last social democratic government between 2011 and 15, led by Helle Thorning-Schmidt, which I would characterize as the culmination of neoliberalism in Denmark. The Thorning government really went on a reform craze, as Thorning actually articulated it. So we had this discussion within the party about a parliamentary strategy, and we agreed on that the next time we were to support a social democratic government, we had to make this written down agreement, and we had to draw some clear lines about when we could withdraw our backing for such a government. And of course, that's a continuous discussion now, whether the social democratic government delivers on like climate policies, but also on welfare. And of course, there's the very difficult question about the whole immigration policies issue. And I think there is a continuous debate within and outside the party of when and if to withdraw our backing. I think it's very difficult because although the social democratic government has not rolled back some of the most problematic reforms of the last governments, they have actually raised the general level of welfare in Denmark. They have their budgets, national budgets, they're not austerity budgets anymore. So that they kind of deliver on some areas and on some small reforms, also like the pension reform, but they are not really tackling the large problems we have both in welfare and in other issues. So it's a difficult question, and I think we are.
I think the answer in all three countries is something like it's complicated.
Yeah, of course it's, but I mean, if we had a situation, again, I think it's not. And you can correct me, Aron. I think it's not that difficult in Sweden. I mean, if the social democratic government in Denmark proposed also a liberalizing reform of the housing market, we would also have to withdraw our backing. I think that's. But in this way, the Danish social democrats are more. They're different from the Swedish social democrats.
Do we have any questions coming in, Andrea? Not yet. I'll ask you to pose some questions then. And please, if you could start with Aron Etzler, because he has to leave us in something like 20 minutes. So he has some questions on.
Sorry, family matters.
But please come forward with the questions. You can just. It's also possible to raise your hand with these small icons. You can do this.
While you're thinking about this, it just struck me that the most important thing that has happened for our parties in this aspect of relationships to the Social Democrats is the possibility for us, the real possibility for us to make cooperations with the right wing. Because it's the first time in our history when the Social Democrats cannot just point to us and say, well, you have to accept whatever we offer you because you have nowhere else to go. And I think that's a really big step forward. And we found out that much of what the right wing is offering us is not worse than what the Social Democrats are offering us. It's kind of shocking. It says a lot about the social democracy, but this has been a huge thing for us. Thanks.
We have a question from Dorian Vettel from the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation.
Yeah, to kick off some discussion, but it's building from actually Aron's point right there, and his point earlier about working with the right. And I'm guessing this right is not the far right, but it would be interesting to know which parts of the right you're working with, because another part of the book, I think, deals with some of the questions around the cordon sanitaire for the far right and the different strategies towards that. I know there's a full range of positions in different parties, from full exclusion to strategic cooperation to just ignoring them and focusing on our own positions as a way forward. But I read, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the actual motion for the no confidence vote in Sweden was put by the Sweden Democrats. So maybe if Aron and also the other speakers could just talk on this issue of what working with, or how do we relate with the far right in that respect? Please, Aron.
Yes, you're absolutely right. The motion was written by the Sweden Democrats, they're a horrible party. It's kind of a special case because we didn't have the votes ourselves to raise the issue of this kind of vote. So someone else had to do it with us, and that was our way to say that what we said was this is just a technicality. It's not a proposal from them. It's our proposal from the beginning. It's not as if we, it's just a vote of no confidence. It has no political content. But of course, some people criticize it. I would say that when we do the stuff with the right wing, we have no cooperation with the extreme right. We never talk to them. We never share proposals. But what usually happens is that they vote for our proposal. And some people criticize that we are calculating with their vote. On the other hand, I think that's, it's really hard to maneuver. We wouldn't have anything done if we didn't have the support from there and other parties. But our main thing is that we've been working with the moderates, which is like, a conservative party, with the Christian Democrats, even more conservative party. We've been working with liberals and with the Center Party, all of them. And actually, I think we found, in some of the cases, it has been, we've done it for a political cause, and they've done it because they hate the government. But that's good enough for us. I think the left needs to be more of a power play in this way. And what we should not do is to do what the social democracy has done, which is to, kind of, even out all of the political conflict. What we have done has actually sharpened political conflict between left and right, even with the right wing's, support sometimes. What the social democracy is doing is to say that, well, the difference is not that big anyway, and then they can put, their lousy proposals to the public. So I think we're doing something completely different than what they are.
We have a question from Annemarie Mineur, I think. Sorry if I mispronounce your name.
Not at all, not at all. Hi, I'm Annemarie Mineur. That's the Dutch way of pronouncing it, the French way also, but you're happy to pronounce it any way you like. I used to be an MEP, a member of the European Parliament for the Dutch Socialist Party. I'm now a party manager for that same party. So I'm interested in well, both the international perspective and, well, the internal party political perspective. I think that Esben raised a very interesting point, which is that, well, as I see it, social democrats should not be our biggest enemy. In fact, the fact that they're now everyone's favorite enemy is sort of damaging to us as well. And I think it undermines the confidence in left politics. I mean, that's what I see happening in the Netherlands. People just don't trust left-wing politics anymore. And while I'm as disappointed in social democratic politics as anyone else is, I still think we are, shooting in our own foot if we keep fighting social democrats. So we should, I think, find a way of pushing them towards being, well, principled parties again, rather than, fighting them, because they're not the main enemy of workers and of people who want, what do you call it, a good legal democratic state. They should be our allies, and I think we should educate them rather than fight them. I think that might be, well,
let's take a round of comments on that. The social democracy as an ally in the struggle. And Esben, could you start by just briefly tell us how do you see collaboration between left-wing parties and the social democratic parties? What kind of compromises can be made, for example?
Well, as I said before, we actually have quite a good relation compared to other countries, at least in Denmark, to the Social Democrats, because of our common agreement written down after the election. But I mean, yeah, if it also depends on the Social Democrats if they want to cooperate, right? I think that at least in Denmark, we are in a situation where the two left parties and the Social Democrats in most polls actually could get a majority just by themselves. And I think we would be interested, or I would at least be interested in that. I see a lot of a way forward in such a coalition, but I'm very skeptical about the Social Democrats wanting to do that, because they like their position as a minority government, being able to make agreements to the left, to the right, and so on. So I think we have to, while continuously pushing the Social Democrats towards creating such a red and green progressive alliance, also be realistic that they probably won't do that and have an alternative strategy in that case.
Kerstin, Wolter, can you give us a few words on what you call the dilemma of being in power with the Social Democrats in Germany?
I think the experience of coalitions from the left party and the Social Democrats the experience took part in a time where the neoliberal hegemony was very huge. So, and I think we have a new situation now after the economic crisis in 2008, after the Corona crisis now, and facing the next economic crisis in Germany, in Europe. And I think we have maybe a new phase where we can implement more social politics. Maybe if we have a government which is willing to implement social politics. And we have national elections in autumn this year in Germany. And everyone, or lots of people, are thinking that we are facing a black-green government, a government of the Green Party and the Christian Democrats, and and I think like we have in Austria, and I think this is quite dangerous when we think of facing right-wing populism, because this coalition is not able to to make social or politics facing the social state, for example. And I think that this is like, we have to be, as left party and also as the middle left project, we are, I think, in a very big, we are really in a situation where we should make it possible to build a project which is a middle left project, also maybe in the next government. But I don't know if we can do this if the society in Germany is not willing to push left politics. And I'm kind of skeptical if this is if we have the situation where a middle left project can do left politics because the society wants it or is supporting it. So
we have a lot of questions coming up, but Aron, you're leaving us shortly. So could you give us a quick analysis of the current crisis with the Social Democrats and the government, and then the more long-term strategy for the left party in Sweden? Give us a bit on that before you leave us.
Yeah, I think that's a fitting subject for 5 minutes, don't you?
Yes.
No, I can't. I agree with a lot of what Esben has said. I think the Social Democrats, in adapting to neoliberalism, became a completely meaningless political force. And I think in Sweden, their only support really in the population is people who are older than 50 years. If you look at the younger people, more of them support us than them. We are now at half of their support of the Social Democrats. And I think that we managed to do that because we stopped seeing ourselves as a supplement to the Social Democrats. We are not there to, make them whole or to make them better or to push them. I think that left parties should see themselves as the main thing and aspire to be the big party of the working class and the middle class. Because otherwise we can whine about the Social Democrats, we can, complain about them, we can try to, maneuver them, educate them, or whatever we want to call it. But the thing is that they are in command of their own destiny. And the Social Democrats, I mean, if you have been cooperating with any one of them, you know that their main characteristic of today is that they are power hungry. They're about being in government, full stop. And whatever it takes to stay in government. That is how they are acting. I'm not saying this to be mean. I think it's just a matter of fact. Of course, whenever they have when they have political ambitions, we love them. I mean, I was a huge fan of Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour party. I think that was maybe the greatest party we've seen in Europe in many, many years. But we also saw what happened very shortly after he tried to implement left policies. He was crushed by his own party. So to conclude, I think that, and it was also mentioned by Kerstin, I think, that we should cooperate more with social movements. I think we should. That is a good thing. But I think also that we should see ourselves as the movement, that we should find a pride in doing that, that we should organize people, that we should always, expand our contacts, that we should be the party of, the next generation. As the Greens, I think, are in Germany now, I think they have an excellent position. They have in many other countries. If we manage to do that, while, as Esben was into, start organizing, the more traditional working class, that would be a position of hegemony. And I think that we should look to no less, because to be frank, I think the Social Democrats, I've been, thinking for 30 years on how to make them better. And we haven't come up with a solution. I mean, we have to be bigger. We maybe then, if we were, a balanced force with them, yeah, that would be a position where we can push them. But as long as we are smaller than the Social Democrats, they will have other, much more, I think, palatable solutions going with liberal parties. That is our conclusion. So, and also with a bit of pride, I think that we've been showing, we have 3 times as many members as we had 10 years ago. We are twice as big. We have a much more influence in society. I think it's possible. And I think it also makes it much more fun to be a left partyist and not to be, left parties within a parenthesis supplement of the Social Democrats.
Thank you, Aron. We'll give you a Zoom clap. It's not really impressive, but it's there. So turn on your microphone and give him a hand.
Thank you.
Clap, very sporadic. But
thank you. I have to leave. Best of wishes. See you again. Bye.
See you again. Get you to join the debate again. We have a lot of questions coming up, and we start with a question from Pia C. Jensen.
Thank you very much. I would like to put a question about policy limit. Is it important for the left party to support government? The government, no matter some of the policy, for instance, on refugee policy. I think in Denmark, Enhedslisten is supporting the government no matter what they do about the refugees.
That's a good question. How do you balance different policies of the government, and when do you stop supporting them? What kind of alternative is there to the government you're supporting? But we'll take another question as well, so you have 2 things to answer, and that's from Mathias Koe Hansen.
Yeah, but I'll read that out loud because Matthias's microphone doesn't work. Matthias would like to ask how the left should handle the right's insistence on injecting the culture war into every political debate. He gave me a bit of an elaboration. It's mostly meant in relation to how the American conditions of the culture war in the political debate are seeping into the European discussions of it.
So the left is very happy to talk about economic inequality, but it seems that right-wing populism has been winning on value politics, maybe. So these are 2 good questions, and we'll pose them to Kerstin Wolter and Esben Bøgh. Who will start? Who's first? Kerstin?
Yeah.
You ready? Thank you.
Yeah, I think that, we have this we have this debate about cultural war in the German left as well, and I'm not very happy about it, I can tell, because I think it's leading to a false focus. So we are only concentrating on the cultural differences in the working class instead of being popular, of unifying class politics. So as I said, because, for example, the housing movement and also the Left Party being part of this movement, the trade unions being part of this movement, this can be a successful unifying class movement. And I think we should concentrate on that, because everyone needs a house or an apartment or somewhere to live, and it doesn't depend if you, or everyone who, like, if you have a migration background, if you are a woman or a man, if you are working as a nurse or as an I don't know, as an I don't know, you know what I mean. And I really think we should concentrate on this. And I think that we do not have, for example, in Germany, I can tell that we do not have enough successful examples in this class politics. And I think we have to be successful. And only in being successful, we can fight the right-wing populism. So, and I think we really shouldn't doing a favor to the right-wing parties in also discussing the cultural war questions. I think this is only dividing the working class.
Esben, do you have a comment on these two questions?
Yes, it's a very difficult questions. I think, well, regarding they also have to do with one another, right? I think regarding the whole cultural war issue, what I actually also try to do in the chapter is to show that, well, of course they have also the classical socialist labor movement was also a cultural movement. So, but this distinction between economic, distributional, social struggles and purely cultural struggles, I think that's kind of new, and it came in the 80s, late 90s, when in the aftermath of neoliberalism, I think. And so the right wing was able to kind of frame the entire cultural question or cultural struggle on their own terms. And I think a way out of that is not to, it has to be to build a strong party, a strong left, a strong movement, as we have talked about, focused again on class and a left that is better to organize. And I think also we have to so there's no shortcut, and I think I agree a lot with Kerstin on this issue that, well, how are we able to win over broader layers of the working and the middle classes? That is through proving that we are it's in their material interest to support us and to be part of our movement. I don't think the broad layers of the population will support us just for ideological reasons. We have to prove that we can actually improve their lives, and that's we are not going to do through a cultural war. I think so. So I think I agree with the Kerstin on this.
We have a question from Helene Bank. A half Danish or full Norwegian? I don't know. From Norway at least.
Still a Danish passport, but lived in Norway since 82 actually. I come from the Campaign for the Welfare State in Norway. We are an alliance with the members from both the unions, farmers, users of the welfare state and so on. So, and thank you very much for this. I think back to the three things actually had what to bring in as question too. But I wonder this this what Aron told about what was happening on the housing sector in Sweden now, and Esben, I understand you also. You said like if something happens in liberalization of the housing sector in Denmark too, then that would be a stop if I think right. And I wonder because housing. The other thing that Aron said was there had been no debate on immigration that time we have discussed housing. Housing is for poor, it is for working class, it is for, discrimination is against Muslims, blacks, LGBT, all sort of people. Suddenly there was something that was common to all. And I'm thinking that liberalization where we in Norway really had huge problem of our early liberalization in housing, that we do use examples from Germany, from Denmark, from Sweden and so on. And I think also that the labor unions in Norway start engaging in the housing issue again, as they did just after the Second World War and also before. So I just wonder, because on the other side, the big capital want privatization of houses and assets. So as socialists too, I think it is important to also take that structural problem that if you have a problem in the capitalist society, you go into assets. So I think we need, even though we don't need to talk about that in the public, we still need to have that analysis of what's happening here. And I also saw that tax fraud documentation on which was, what is it, still in Europe, which was on the Norwegian television yesterday. So that's one thing, that how do we deal with that, those structural things, and also because that is a time where I can see that also the populist or right-wing populists actually might even, find those who are the grassroots might even find back to the labor class where they might feel they are with. And so my second question was, and I'm just sorry to take that can be brief, but the answer is broad. We discuss and are often asked, since we in our societies have got such a huge middle class, who is working class of today? Because nobody said that. What's the definition? Because analysis in Norway is that many of the right-wing populists, they are former Labour Party people, and they actually they see that there are no other that actually fight those day-to-day struggles, and they can even vote against their interests in that sense.
Those are good questions and comments as well, Helena. Thank you for that. So if I can sort of sharpen them just a little bit, who's the worker of today? Who's the working class? And is maybe housing the new class question that we should rally around? So those are two good questions, and we have maybe a third from Lise Bostrup.
Yes, I would like to comment on the working with the Social Democrats here in Denmark, because they haven't done what they promised to do. They made this paper with Enhedslisten, but especially about the climate, they have been, well, not doing near what they have promised to do. And it means, and that's the problem, I think, it means that the movements, the climate movement, many of them stop believing in Enhedslisten, because they are far more radical in their claims than they see Enhedslisten be, and they give up, and it's all. I think it is working so near with Social Democrats who don't fulfill climate, who don't fulfill welfare. You lose connection with the movements, and I think that is a very big problem, because we need the move. We need to be a party in whom where we can get members from the movement, because they are already radicalized. And then I also want to ask with the class question, a lot of people are not the industrial workers anymore. They are working poor, and they are not in trade unions. And how do we change our strategy towards them?
Those are very good questions, and I hope Kerstin, Wolter, and Esben, Bøgh, you have very good answers to that. But the question is, who's the working class? How can we use the housing question as some sort of class policy, class mobilization? And then from Pia and Lise, we have the question of, if you get some new policies on welfare policies, economic policies with the Social Democrats, can you just forget about the climate or value politics or immigration? What is the price of giving up on those subjects? So please save us. Come forward. Esben, would you like to start?
Yeah, I can start with the question about class. I mean, in the official, the way statistics officially group the working class or define the working class in Denmark is simply skilled and unskilled workers. And that's about 40% of the population. So the so-called traditional working class is still pretty big in Denmark, and of course even more in other countries. But of course I would prefer a Marxist definition of the working class, right? But I think that wouldn't change much whether you define the working class in a narrow sense or maybe in a broader sense, and you would get maybe 50-60% of the population. Nevertheless, however you define the working class, it's a fact that the left doesn't really have support from it, at least not to a significant extent. So that's a problem. No matter how you define the working class, is housing a new class issue? I think housing has always been a class issue. I mean, the workers' movement was in Denmark organized around housing. Also in other countries, of course, like cooperative housing and public housing was a very big issue, and you had this huge housing. Socialist housing wave in the 1920s. So it was always a class issue, and I think it's very good if housing can again become a prominent issue in politics. I think that would benefit the left and be a way for it to again connect to workers. But I also think that the left hasn't been good at the entire question about work. What is work? How should we? What should work be in our lives? How should it be organized? And so on. I think we need to put the question of work and also the workplace back into our focus. But not to forget housing, but I think it's just to mention an issue I think is very important, and the left should orient more towards again. The other question about like the relation to the Social Democratic Party, I think it's very difficult. I mean, as I said before, the Social Democratic government has actually delivered on breaking with the last 10-20 years of austerity national budgets, and it's a fact that the general level of welfare has risen a bit. But on the other hand, they haven't really rolled back any of the most harshest reforms, and they are still not delivering at least enough on climate. And yeah, I don't have an answer for when to withdraw our backing, but it's a very difficult issue, and I think, well, I don't think I'm seeing the Red-Green Alliance currently are surging in the polls, so we aren't losing support from like the climate movement or other movements. That's not my impression. That is, of course, not to say that we could lose support if we don't withdraw back into the Social Democratic Party. But I just have to say I don't have a quick answer for that issue right here now. I think what I'm mostly concerned with is like the more overall situation of the left.
Kerstin, Wolter, 3 good questions for you as well.
Yeah, I think the question of who is the working class and who we should organize as left parties is a very important one. And I also thought that when I read Esben's article and you said that the left party should go out of the should go out of the big cities, because for example the Red-Green Alliance is mostly strong in Copenhagen, and I don't know if I would agree with that, because I think that the working class is still living in the cities, and I think the left parties and when we are as left parties successful in the cities, I think we should focus on the cities and be more successful. And I think this is also combined with the question of who is the working class, because I think in Germany we have we are not very good in organizing the industrial working class right now, and I think this is also because there is a very often a conservative world view in the industrial working class, and I think we were more successful in organizing the service class, the new service class, and the working poor, and maybe on the middle term it's more important to focus on that, and not being not successful and on focusing on the industrial working class, and in that leaving the support of the service class and the working poor. I think because the working class changed so much in the last decades, and not everyone who has studied at university is part of the elite right now. We're far away from that, and maybe this should be our strategy in not on the long term but on the middle term. I think on the long term we have to also organize the industrial working class, but maybe we are not strong enough right now to do so. So I can speak for Germany, not just for Germany there. And and on the other side, like it was a question like which other opportunities to cooperate with the Social Democrats. Was this the question? Yeah, and
what kind of price are we willing to pay to do it?
The price willing to pay. This is a question we discuss a lot in the German left. What is the price? And I think there is no cheap answer to this. So I think we are always have to decide on which politics are possible, and I think if we want to be able to do a progressive politics, there has to be a strong support from social movements, but also from the society in general. And I think this is what all depends on. And I think it's very hard to decide when we are, for example, in the government, when we are in a coalition with the Social Democrats, when we should leave this coalition. I think it's a very, very tough decision, because in Germany we had already the experience where we in one of the federal states where we didn't support the program of the Social Democrats, and we had new elections after this, and then I don't know the English words, but then we didn't come into parliament again in one of the federal states. So it was not like, oh yeah, the left party, they were how to say that, they were strong in their own view, but the people maybe thought, okay, they cannot trust the left party because they are just leaving the government if it doesn't work as they want. So I think it's a very, very tough question, and maybe we should maybe there is no easy answer on that.
We have
sorry to disappoint.
Question, and it has to be a brief one, and it's from Hans Henrik Olsen. So please, not too elaborate.
No, it's hard to be brief because there's so many problems. Where is the European level in this discussion to strengthen left-wing policies? There's so many aspects of enforcement of labor rights we do not discuss. How about an offensive, left-wing offensive in the European Parliament about procurement, regulation on procurement, regulation on posted workers? That's actually problems that workers in Denmark see, and they seek the solution by right wings, not by us. There's no problem about Polish workers or Estonian workers in Denmark. It's just that sometimes they're undermining the level of the collective agreements and labor rights and salaries in Denmark. So how about this offensive that would be, I think it would be an answer to the left wing, and an answer that could make some kind of cooperation with the Social Democrats. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the question. I work with EU issues on a daily level, so that's perfect for me. But you have just 1.5 minutes to answer that, Esben. Yes, because you're rounding up the discussions now. So Esben, please give you a go at the European offensive of the left.
Could you just summarize it again? Because I had a 3-year-old beside me.
There's a lot of sort of European issues facing the working class, like posted workers, competition on salaries, and so on. So what kind of perspective is there for a left-wing offensive, not just at a national level, but on European regulation of this free movement of labor and so on?
Oh, I don't know.
Maybe we can go for Kerstin first. The European level, Kerstin?
Yeah, I think that's a tough question. I think that right now we have the situation, or since a few years, that the European politics are losing, or losing focus in the left parties. I think it's more focused on the national level right now, or the left parties are more focused on the national level, and not on European cooperation. So I think this is also not only a problem of the left parties, but also of the social movements in the different countries. What I really think is that we need a new internationalist alliance. We need new internationalist alliances. I think they are not strong enough right now. Also, when we look at the trade unions in Europe, and also in the left parties. And I don't know. Of course, we have the European Parliament, and we have the Fraktion. What is that? We have the left. The left, it's the new name, the left in the European Parliament, and but they are not so strong in this coalition. So, or in the European Parliament. So I think we really to have a new idea of how an internationalist alliance could look like, on the different levels.
Esben, have you cleared your kids off the table? So
yeah, I mean, it's a difficult question. It's also something we are discussing in the Red Green Alliance currently, because at the last European election, election for the European Parliament, the Red Green Alliance participated for the first time. And now we're having a discussion within the party about what's actually our position on the EU. Should we still, because we until now and still we have we formally supported the movement against the EU in Denmark, and now we have a member of the European Parliament. We are discussing how should we actually go about working on the EU level. And I think we all agree that, well, it would be perfect with a stronger left on the European level, and we should work. I actually think that European politics has become more important within the Red Green Alliance because of our current discussion, and we get more information about what's actually going on. So I think it was a good decision to participate ourselves, because we simply connect to the European left on this level. Yeah, I think that's my answer.
That's a whole new scope for discussions on
Exactly.
the role of the left. I can tell all of you here that we have a series of debates lined up for the autumn, for the fall. And those discussions lead up to a big workshop or conference, and they're mainly focused on economic democracy or cooperatives, democratic ownership of infrastructure, and so on. So it's kind of a discussion on what kind of role can the left play in this field. Are you willing to do a Zoom clap again for Esben, Bøgh, Sørensen, and Kerstin, Wolter, because I think they need our support here. So turn on your microphone, give them a good clap. When we meet again, this clapping will be a lot more impressive. You'll get support from everyone from that. But I'd like to just briefly show you that the book is real. And I can tell you, since you signed up for this debate with your email, we will mail you the book, the web version of the book, and just delete it if you don't want it. If you do want it, keep it. And you can collect printed copies from the Rosa Luxemburg Stiftung in Brussels, from the Venstrepartiet in Malmö, and from us in Copenhagen, from DO in Copenhagen, in his system in Copenhagen. And we can also mail them, of course. So they do exist, and here comes the book. Just a second. It's called Don't Panic. So it's a play on the Don't Panic, Organize, but it's also, if you know, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's printed in nice, friendly letters that you shouldn't panic, do something else. And the book contains a series of analysis. We have the first section with analysis of the political situation with a focus on right-wing populism in the 3 countries. We have the second section with a discussion of different kind of tactics and strategies to tackle the right-wing populism, for example, in parliaments. And finally, we have the 3 authors we've met today, Aron Etzler, Kerstin, Wolter, and Esben Bøgh Sørensen, discussing the perfect left, or at least a vision for a perfect left. And finally, I'd like to thank my 2 co-editors of the book. It's more or less an anthology, but we have had Andrea Bang. She has been working on the text and proofreading and so on. And we have Michael Lauritsen from DO as well. And he's been working on the initial papers and workshops leading to the production of the book. So maybe we could give them a hand as well, I think, before you've read the book. But anyway. I'm very happy you wanted to participate today, and we'll hopefully see you all again, maybe even in the physical real world, to continue our discussions on how to build a better and more a better organized left for the future. So thank you all for today.